All right, so Deathbattle came out with Clive from Final Fantasy 16 versus Dante from Devil May Cry, and I got littered with what are my thoughts. So, I watched the video. I will admit I did take a couple notes, and then I forgot to save them. So we're gonna go based off what I remember. I don't know anything about Final Fantasy or Clive. I bought Final Fantasy 16 and plan to play through it, and then I will actually make a well done video on my analysis. And it will be my analysis alone. I won't sit here and belittle or complain about Deathbattle. They're their own channel. They have their own thoughts. They have their own opinions. They did a great job on the voice acting. They did a great job on the animation. It was fun to watch. It's entertaining. But I'm not going to go over and row by row complain about what they did or didn't talk about. That's their channel. That's their thing. I don't care. So what I do know is when they talked about Dante, I felt like there was some lowballing that I wanted to talk about, and this is what I will talk about more in the other video once I play through Final Fantasy 16. But some of the things that were shared about Dante were like, he's around a universal level threat, and that was kind of with the thought of like Mundus, and then like Argusax was like lightly mentioned, and then Urizen wasn't like by name. They were there, but it wasn't like explosive of like how powerful Mundus or Void Mundus or Argusax or Urizen actually are. And so some of the things, and then they mentioned like video game mechanics as like an endurance comparison, which was interesting. But I will say, so Mundus creates his own universe. Like that is proven. That is the thing. That's in the end of Devil May Cry 1 when they fight. And then Dante, with the power of, or the Blade of Sparta, the power of his dad, he goes and is able to beat Mundus. Not necessarily like defeat him for good, but he defeats him to enable him to make his escape off Malay Island, right? And then he has to fight him again. And then Dante needs just a little bit more power from Trish to go beat her, right? And that's because Dante is noted to be weaker in the world of the living than he would be in the underworld. It's like it's literally stated in that same game. And then you have in the novels, Dante faces off against Chen the Cannibal, who is very scary and very powerful when he eats the beast heads. And Dante defeats him as well. And I'm not going to go, into a whole thing about Chen, but I will go into a thing about Void Mundus. So, Void Mundus and Argusax, I think they can be a package of explaining how powerful Dante needs to be to defeat both of them in base form at this point. So, Void Mundus, he absorbs like the underworld. Like he's literally a void, right? Like a shadow almost, but scarier than a shadow, right? And in the novel, Dante is just fighting him kind of like Goku and Ultra Instinct would, where he just finds himself blocking him. And he's actually winning. He doesn't exactly know what's happening, but he's winning the fight. And he's not in his Devil Trigger form. He doesn't have his Majin form or Sin Devil Trigger. And he goes on to defeat Void Mundus. And this is a different dimension, different universe, different underworld than the one in the main game. And so, I can see the argument from that point alone. Oh, well then, okay, so Mundus absorbed the universe or dimension of the underworld. That's still only a universal feat. If you want to go and think very plainly on that, sure. But then you have Argusax, who is in the underworld. He's imprisoned. He's not allowed to come into the world of the living. And then things happen at the end of DMC2 to start breaking those barriers. And Argusax, he's not even in the world of the living. His power is spewing out from the underworld through the portal that Dante eventually goes in to go defeat or fight Argusax. And just simply being around the portal. And like the mission or two before that Dante has to go through before you even get to this boss fight, it talks in the lore, in the combat guide, how time is being impacted out here differently than it normally would be in the world of living, where like time just goes the way that it does. But Argusax's power is messing with time, and he's not even out there yet, right? And so that just his sheer existence is impacting time, and he's not even in that universe. He's not even in that dimension. And then Dante goes and fights him and defeats him in his base form with Ebony and Ivory and a charged up demonic shot, and defeats Argusax. That has to mean at minimum that Dante or Argusax are like multiversal beings. He's just, his existence is impacting time, space and time. And so like if Argusax or even Mundus were able to get into the world of the living, it definitely seems like they're going to ruin the world of the living just by simply entering. Like I don't know what more you really need to go to, and this is still like end of Devil May Cry 2 Dante. This isn't 4 or 5. And Dante in base form is going to defeat Argusax, who is as powerful as I just talked about. And then we have Urizen later go and be the first one to actually defeat Dante. And Dante don't have STT yet, Send Devil Trigger. He hasn't figured out, right, how he his ability works with the rebellion, like, Virgil figured out the Yamato a long time ago. And then by figuring that out, he goes and beats a further empowered Urizen that's been sitting there, sucking the blood of humans, and then beats the final version of Urizen that goes and gets a Clyphoth fruit. And then they go fight Virgil, and they're even, right? But again, to circle back, I plan to go through and play Final Fantasy 16 on my own to go see how strong Clive is. But some of the things that I wanted to talk about is how Dante was pretty lowballed on some stuff. And then we also have like this endurance thing, which the endurance thing, even if you want to go and say like, let's say Clive has better endurance, because I don't know. I mean, endurance really only matters if they're similar in strength. And I know in the video they talked about that a lot, that they're so close that it gets down to endurance. So if they're so close when Dante is noted to be universal and Dante lose because of endurance, and I just talked about Dante being past, base multiversal being with just a couple statements. I mean, he's universal at the end of DMC 1 earlier because he's tanking the Yamato. But if we want to go by Nightmare and his destructive power on the underworld, which is not the same dimensional area or universe or dimension as ours because of what I just talked about. Otherwise, the universe would start imploding on itself and the underworld because of Argusax. And Argusax is weaker than Mundus. And Mundus is fine down there. He hasn't broke it until the other universe or the other parallel universe that he does absorb it. He absorbs it. Right? So he absorbs this higher dimensional universe, dimension, whatever, of the underworld in this parallel universe and beats him. Right? So just by Void Mundus, with what we just went over, there's 2 different points right there before he even gets to Urizen, before he even has DMC4, where he's in the multiversal level, and he's defeating those guys in base form. And he has 2 more level ups. So that's my soapbox on my thoughts of Devil May Cry, speaking mostly on how strong Dante is with random quick thoughts without knowing anything about Clive yet. But anyway, no hate to Death Battles at all. Love their content. Love that they go and dedicate time to go talk about this stuff. Speaking on, Dante, that is my thoughts on Dante.